So tell me, are there any goats here today? Now, I don't mean old goats. That's some of us. The GOAT with that acronym, the greatest of all time. Anyone here the greatest of all time? I thought you were raising your hand. I'm glad no one raised their hand. Greatest of all time, that's saying a lot. But you know, in the sports world, where you say some people are the greatest of all time. Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer of all time. Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time. Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. Among women athletes, Serena Williams, the greatest tennis player of all time. Simone Biles, the greatest gymnast of all times. Katie Ledecky, the greatest swimmer of all time. Wow. And in Hollywood, we also have actors and actresses who are the greatest of all time. Now, I Googled this to see what Google would tell me. They said the greatest actor of all time is Robert De Niro. The second one, Marlon Brando. And the third one, Daniel Day-Lewis. I don't know. And then among actresses, the greatest actress of all time, Meryl Streep. Second, Katharine Hepburn. Three, Ingrid Bergman. Now, some of you are too young to even know who Ingrid Bergman was, or Katharine Hepburn, maybe even Meryl Streep, or Marlon Brando. But for whatever reason, they've been called the greatest of all time. What makes them the greatest of all time? Well, for athletes, it's winning. The most boxing matches, the most football games, the most basketball games, the most tennis matches, the most gymnast competitions, the most swimming competitions. You're great, you win a lot of gold medals, you are at the top of your game. For movie stars, it's maybe Oscars or nominations for Oscars, but also when you portray someone on screen, it's just magic. But the greatest of all time is a long time. I'm sure there'll be other athletes that will come and will surpass Ali and Jordan and Brady and Serena and Simone and Katie Ledecky. So maybe they're the greatest of their time, but of all time. Same thing, I think already now there's actors and actresses that are greater than the ones I just mentioned. So I don't think anyone in the world is the greatest of all time, Well, maybe one exception. Jesus Christ. I don't think he ever was called a goat, but he certainly called himself the Good Shepherd. But in our lingo that I'm using today, he is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And in today's gospel, he was telling us how we can be great as well, but unlike the discussion that the apostles were having. I think their discussion must have gone something like this. Peter, well, I'm the greatest. He called me rock. I'm the head of the church. I'm the first pope. I'm the greatest, yeah. And John said, well, Peter, you have some administration abilities, but you've goofed quite a few times. He loves me the most. My nickname is the beloved apostle, the beloved, so he likes me best. I'm sure Jesus was just shaking his head saying, no, guys, you don't get it. You don't get it at all. In my kingdom, it's that the person is greatest who has humility, who is of service to others. That's what it means to be great in my kingdom. So let's look at those two virtues, humility and service. Humility. Now there's false humility. You say, oh, I'm no good, I'm terrible, I'm bad. That's just kind of fishing for a compliment. If you're going to say, oh, you're really okay, you're good. No, that's false humility. Humility is knowing who you are with your weaknesses and with your strengths. How you can avoid those weaknesses as often as possible and use those strengths to make our world a better place. I was told one time that Winston Churchill was asked by someone, I think a reporter, Mr. Churchill, aren't you impressed, aren't you proud when you give a speech? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, are there to listen to your speech? And Churchill answered, well, when I start thinking about that, I think about, well, if I were being hanged in a public square, there'd be twice the crowd. Humility, yes. And let me tell you a story of humility about my own family and why I'm here today. My uncle, John Kenny, was ordained a priest for the Diocese of Toledo, Ohio. And in the late 30s, early 40s, he had some asthma problems. In those days, they were told everyone to move to Arizona. That was the Mecca, to move to Arizona. So he was all ready to make the move, but beforehand, he was on a train from Toledo to Philadelphia. And He met the priest on the train. The priest asked him, "Who are you?" He said, "John Kenny." He said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Toledo, but I'm moving to Arizona for health reasons." The priest said, "Why don't you move to Nevada? We need priests in Nevada just as well. It's just like Arizona. It's a dry state. It's a desert." My uncle said, "No, I have no interest in Nevada whatsoever. Thank you. I'll stick with Arizona." When they got off the train, he asked the priest, "Again, what's your name?" He said, "Thomas Gorman." He said, "What do you do in Nevada?" He said, "I'm the bishop." My uncle said something like, "Because you never pulled the bishop card rank on me this whole train trip, I'm going to work for a bishop like you." So he forgot about Arizona. 1946, moved here to Nevada. And Bishop Gorman promised him he'd always be in southern Nevada because northern Nevada is a much more difficult climate. Because of the humility of Bishop Gorman, not wanting him to kiss his ring or call him Your Excellency, because that bishop's humility, he moved here. My dad and uncle and the kids all moved here in 1948. I'm here today because of Bishop Gorman's humility. And the sweet irony is that I'm an alumnus, as are my sisters, of Bishop Gorman High School. And over the last 40 years, I've been chaplain at Bishop Gorman High School off and on for about 30 of those years. I'm no longer the chaplain of the high school. They have a full-time chaplain there, and that's good, because I was only a part-time chaplain. I always had parish work as my priority. But the chaplain over there is chaplain of everything at the high school except the football team. Because he comes from England, he doesn't understand American football. So he asked me to be the chaplain of the football team. And that's why they're a winning team. No, that's false humility. I just broke my own rule, and I trapped you into it. Okay, humility. I'm a Nevadan, not an Arizonan, thank God. It's so hot in Arizona. How about service? I'm told the story of a monk who every day at noon would go out and feed the hungry poor. They'd line up by the dozens. And every day he also prayed that one day he would meet Jesus Christ in the flesh, see him face to face, be able to shake his hand. One day it happened. He was in the kitchen preparing the noon meal, and Jesus appeared there, and they were talking, conversing, and all of a sudden the noon bell rings. He thought, what a dilemma. I'm with Jesus, the Son of God, and the poor outside waiting for me. What should I do? And he went out and fed the poor. Took about an hour. He comes back thinking Jesus would be gone. He's still there. He said, Jesus, I thought when I left to feed the poor that you would have left. Jesus said, if you had not left to feed the poor, then I would have left. In service, no matter the cost, knowing what to do at the right time for the right people. That's what it's all about. So the challenge today is clear. We're asked to be humble and to be of service to others. How wonderful that is. Now, the prayer of Alcoholics Anonymous, called the Serenity Prayer, I really like to call it the Humility Prayer because it's so perfect. Oh God, grant me the serenity, the humility to accept the things I cannot change. The courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The humility to accept the things I cannot change. I cannot change my past. I cannot change some of my personality defects. Okay, I got to live with that, move on. The courage to change the things I can. Do we have the courage to rearrange our priorities, spend more time with our spouse, with our children, spend more time doing volunteer work for the church or any other good agency? And the wisdom to know the difference. You know, I think a great way to start each day would be wake up and say, whom can I serve today? On whose face can I put a smile? Whose cross can I help to carry? Who can lean on my shoulder? Who needs a friend? And then at the end of the day, the examination of conscience is the same. The day is over. Did I make someone's day better? Was I there when they needed a friend? Did I help carry their heavy cross? Did I give them the advice they needed? Did I let them cry and put their head on my shoulder? So that's what it's all about. Not power, prestige, popularity like the apostles were arguing about, but humility and service. So do you want to be great? The greatest of all time? I don't know if that'll ever happen. But to be great in Jesus' way is to be humble and to serve others. Do that, and I know Jesus will say, great.